The Tolkien Road, Episode 47, The Silmarillion, Chapter 16, of Maeglin. Alright, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 the Tolkien Road,
Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through the works and philosophy of J.R.R. Tolkien. On this episode, we continue our discussion of the Silmarillion with Chapter 16, of Maeglin, wherein we learn the story of the dark elf Eöl and the Noldorin princess Aredhel. By the way, if you haven't already, we would really appreciate it if you left the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes. There's no better way to declare your undying love for this podcast. Enjoy the show! Welcome to the Tolkien Road, everyone. John here. Greta, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, John?
Good.
Good.
Doing pretty well. Get that foot off the
I
table.
know. You saw I pulled it back as soon as I started to stretch it out.
That's right.
My bad.
Shame on you.
I know. Shame on me.
How do you think you pronounce the name of this chapter?
The way I said it in my head when I was reading it was Maeglin.
Well, I kind of thought it was something like that too, but then I went and I used the handy-dandy pronunciation guide in the one of the appendices to the Silmarillion. And here's what it has to say about that the tricky vowel combination AE. It says, as in two names, and Old English as in two more names. Old English.
What?
AE and OE are combinations of the individual vowels A-E and O-E. But AE may be pronounced in the same way as I, and OE as in English toy. So apparently, it's supposed to be pronounced Maeglin, which I got wrong a couple of times.
Wait, say it again?
Maeglin.
Maeglin.
Yeah, which I got wrong a couple of times. I pronounced it last week.
Well, shame on you, John.
So this chapter, I think, is pronounced of Maeglin, the best I can tell.
Okay.
If anybody else knows differently, please let me know so I don't keep saying it like an idiot. Yeah. But yeah, of Maeglin. So that's the chapter we're looking at this week. Chapter 16 of the Silmarillion.
Yep.
Yeah. So
we're just plugging right along, aren't we?
Initial response to this chapter, Greta?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a story within a story.
Yeah. It was. We've been kind of flying. Doing the whole overview of Beleriand and everything for the last couple of chapters, and this feels like we come down into a very specific story right here.
Yes.
With very specific individual characters, and it's almost like this little. If we take the Silmarillion to be like one whole season of a TV show or something like that, it's almost like, this is that one episode where it involves a character that you're not, it focuses on a character that maybe isn't normally a main character, and all of a sudden puts them in focus and tells the story from their perspective.
Right.
So yeah, kind of an interesting little diversion, but it is important to the overall plot, even though it's maybe hard to see right now how it all relates.
Okay.
So we'll see that as we get, as we move further on in the Silmarillion. All right, well, let's start. Let's start with our poetry.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do this thing.
I think you need to turn that up. There it is. That's good. Rock it. Haiku. It's me every time.
It's an explosion of greatness.
so good.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
It's like the haiku theme song. You know, it was just building to this point of utter awesomeness, and it just got too awesome for itself, and then
I
exploded.
guess imploded. I can do.
It was just a veritable champagne supernova of awesome sauce. It's like awesome sauce exploding everywhere. Yeah.
I thought it was supernova.
It is a supernova. Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure we were talking about the same thing.
Governor, would you like some champagne supernova with your dinner, Governor? Yeah. Can't do the British accent real well.
No.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's probably some British people that listen to this. I hope they're not like offended by
No, we're totally not making fun.
Yeah, we wish we had that accent.
I do.
Yeah.
I think it sounds so much more sophisticated.
Now,
than our y'alls.
we say like governor.
I know.
You know, that sounds boring.
We say weird stuff like, Mike, I might could do that for you.
I might could do that for you.
I might
Yeah,
could.
sure.
Might could do that for y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Living down here in the deep south.
Deep south.
Deep.
Hey, at least we got some good shrimp and grits. They don't have that in England.
Take that.
Yeah. I mean, you got fish and chips and whatever, but I mean,
Yeah.
anyway. Shrimp and grits pretty great too.
Yep.
But I do love some good fish and chips.
Mm-hmm. All right. Poetry.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
So, time for some paper, rock, scissors.
Yes. Or rock, paper, scissors, as
right.
most normal people call them.
I think we should do paper, rock, scissors to decide what we're going to call it once and for all. Whether we're going to call it rock, paper, scissors or paper, rock, scissors.
So I'm rock, paper, scissors, and you're paper, rock, scissors? Yeah. No. I have a very bad feeling you're going to win. I refuse to keep calling it paper, rock, scissors.
All right, maybe another time.
All right.
All right, so this is just for the poem.
Yeah, who goes first?
Yeah. All right.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Oh,
you always beat me.
Yeah.
All right, you want me to go first? You're going to go first.
You go first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah. It's like
all
right.
right.
It's like winning the coin toss in football. You know, the other
You're going to
team
defer.
you kick off, so you defer to the second half.
Okay. All right, here we go. Here's my haiku for chapter 16. Dark and light collide, uniting foes, giving life. A lord and orphan.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well done.
I was pretty proud of that one.
Yeah.
I thought it was, a little deeper than I normally get,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool.
It deserves a quiet round of applause.
A golf clap for me. Thank you. All right, now it's your turn. What you got?
All right. Y'all ready for this?
Yeah, no. Oh, it's gonna be my Running Man.
No.
Okay.
There's been enough Running Man for one night. All right.
Oh man.
Okay. Guarded walls lead to Wanderlust. Another kinslaying soon follows.
Ooh, that's really good. I like Wanderlust. That's a great word.
It is a great word.
Is it like an actual word?
Mm-hmm.
It is?
Yeah.
I thought you said Wanderlust.
You might.
Wanderlust.
But
Is it German?
I'm not German, so
It sounds
I don't try
like
that hard
it
to
should
say.
be Wanderlust.
Say that word.
Wanderlust.
Wanderlust!
No, it should be Wanderlust.
Wanderlust!
Wanderlust. There should be an umlaut over the U. Wanderlust.
You have to say it with authority, though.
No, I feel like it's a more gentle, delicate term. Anyway, I really like that. That's
good.
Really good. I dig it. Yeah.
All right. Well, there's a lot going on in this chapter, so we don't want to drag this mama out too far. So
let's just get right down to it.
Let's do this.
I feel like this would have been a really good chapter for Mary Grace to write us a long form poem.
Well.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Now I guess we have to actually talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I already told you I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that it? We're just gonna call it done.
I mean.
All right.
I guess you're not gonna let me get away with that, but
no.
So let's talk about it.
So yeah, let's do it. So it begins. Speaking about Aredhel Finiel.
Right.
Aredhel Finiel, the White Lady of the Noldor, who is the daughter of Fingolfin, right, the High King, and who dwells in Gondolin with Turgon, her brother, right?
Right.
She, of course, came from Nevros, where he was before coming to Gondolin.
Right.
And when we pick up the action here, it is 200 years after Gondolin is full wrought. So
right. So it's
we're kind of fast forwarding.
Yeah, right, yeah.
We're jumping forward in time a bit. This is, the Siege of Angband has been going on for quite some time now. So things are relatively peaceful in Beleriand, right? There's a good amount of peace and quiet, and Gondolin is just, it's an amazing city to be living in. But 200 years of living in the same place, it's kind of working.
It gets a little old after a while, doesn't it? Yeah.
Working some impatience and some wanderlust, quite frankly, on Aredhel. Yeah, that's the funny thing about this Gondolin city. Is as great as a place it is, Turgon is so protective of it that he rarely lets anyone depart. Right, he rarely lets anyone leave.
He doesn't want anybody finding out where it is.
Exactly, he's afraid that people will be followed back in.
Yep.
And so, you basically have to get his leave to depart. And when it comes to his dear sister, he's even more guarded with her, right?
Sure,
Because obviously, they call her the White Lady of the Noldor, for crying out loud. So, to him and to the rest of the Noldor, she's obviously pretty special.
Right.
So.
Yep.
And one thing to consider too about Gondolin, if we go to the old map at the back of the book, look here where Gondolin is, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's right there in the middle of those mountains, and that's not too far from Angband, right? And from the Ered Gorgoroth, which were the Mountains of Terror, right? So it's not like Gondolin is just in this vast wilderness of safety, right? It's really kind of this little area of safety within a very dangerous area.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's another thing to keep in mind here, is it's not like Turgon is being overprotective. He knows that there's a lot of danger out there. And so you can kind of understand why, he feels this way.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. Yeah.
So she insists though, and finally he says, "Go then if you will, though it is against my wisdom, and I forebode that ill will come of it both to you and to me. But you shall go only to seek Fingon our brother, and those that I send with you shall return hither to Gondolin as swiftly as they may." So he gives her permission to go see Fingon, who I believe, if memory serves, is in Nargothrond, the other great city. Double check that. No. Wait, no, that's Finrod. Where's Fingon, Greta? Don't you know?
Nope.
You're the Silmarillion expert here.
Ha 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 ha.
Um,
I get all those F names confused. I don't know who's who.
Well, darn, I can't remember. Bad me, I should have looked that up or not mentioned it at all. Well, it's in Hithlon because it says a little lower down there.
Yeah,
which is kind of right across this little open area over here, and then across some more mountains up in here into Hithlon, which is not an entirely safe area either, but nevertheless, that's where he gives her permission to go.
Yep.
So she goes, right?
Wrong.
Survey says.
She pretends that she's gonna go.
Yeah.
But then she's like, psych. Change of plans, guys.
Yeah.
We're not going there.
Yeah.
She wanted to go south, not north, because she wanted to go see the Sons of Fëanor.
That's right. The Sons of Fëanor are to the east. They're to the east from where they are. And so she starts out going that direction toward Hithlon, but then she decides to turn south, and and go towards the Sons of Fëanor, who are all kind of... So she's over here, right? She's over here in this area.
Yeah.
Right around, where it says, like, the river, Malduin.
Yes.
Kind of in that general area.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I want to go over here to where the Sons of Fëanor are, over to, like, Hemlod and East Beleriand and Thargelion and all these areas over here, right?
Right.
So that's a long ways.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big problem for her, and that's that Dorioth is right in the middle.
Right.
And
that's where Thingol is.
Right, and
that's
remember...
where that Melion put up that...
Yeah. The girdle.
The girdle.
The girdle of Melion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so not only can she not enter in but to that area and cross through it, but she doesn't have permission to either, because she is the daughter of Fingolfin and not of Finarfin, right? Finarfin, of course, is the sons of Finarfin. The kin of Finarfin are in somewhat decent relations with Thingol and his peeps,
right?
But because of because Finarfin's wife was a Teleri, right. But the children of Fingolfin, the children of Fëanor, no, they're not on any good terms. So this is unfortunate for Aredhel, but she's insistent, and so the men that her brother sent with her, say to her, "Hey, you can either go north or you can go south around Dorioth."
Uh-huh.
And she chooses the northern route.
Uh-huh.
She chooses to go the northern route. So she goes and she crosses through the areas like the non-Dungortheb, Dor Dinan, and then Hemlod, and she finally winds up in this non-Elmoth area. This little forested area right over here next to Dorioth,
okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
In these dark woods. Now, before we move on from there, I just find it really interesting that this parallel, and this is what I wrote my haiku about, right? Like that. Do you remember going back to when things were good in Valinor for so long, and what was you remember what the first thing that really started to bug Fëanor was? Like the first thing that really started to get to him?
I don't.
No?
No.
Well, I mean, basically, he felt like even though they had it so great in this place, he felt imprisoned, right? Fëanor felt like he was imprisoned, and that the Valar wouldn't let them go riding far and wouldn't let them go rule their own realms and all this kind of thing. Right?
Yep.
And I just find it interesting that there's this parallel here with Aredhel, that she feels this wanderlust. She wants to go ride about in these wide lands, and she's like that Dixie Chick songs, right?
That, right?
The wide open spaces.
Yeah, totally, yeah. But didn't she used to be able to do that? She did.
Yeah.
They used to be in Valinor.
Yeah.
So you can't really blame her.
No, you can't. Well, even that, even when she was in Nevrost, right? That's a pretty big area, right, compared to where she is now in Gondolin.
Yeah, with all those mountains around. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, she just. It's an interesting parallel that it's something like this that leads to this distrust and all these issues.
Yeah.
That are about to come. This coming storm. And it's the irony too of living in this wonderful gated community that contains everything that you could possibly want, but feeling imprisoned all the same.
Yeah.
It's kind of this dualistic thing, and just this irony that's rooted within everything. The moment you feel comfortable somewhere, you not instantly maybe, but it's not long before you start getting the itch to go do something else.
Yes.
Right?
That's true.
We're just never able to really like be completely content in one place.
Mm-hmm.
200 years is a long time to stay in
It
one place.
is a really long time.
Even for an elf.
I know. Well, it was funny even when, we were moving around a lot with the Navy. The longest we were ever somewhere was 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I did notice once we had been where we are now for, close to 3 years, I began to feel a little itchy. Like,
Yeah.
I think we've been here too long. Don't we need to move? I feel like
Right.
we should move. So I get that. I totally get that. And that's only 3 years, not even,
Right.
not 200.
Right.
Right? But I mean, it really is. It's very ironic, and it is kind of a double-edged sword. Because in a way, she's got everything she needs, right? I mean, she's well protected. She's with her family. She's well taken care of. She wants for nothing, But at the same time, it's almost like that's too easy, right? Like there's something missing. And I feel like this is a very common story. I mean, you look at the Into the Wild story,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, that kid was very privileged, never wanted for a thing in his life. And yet he has this burning desire to go live off the land in Alaska,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that spirit of adventure is in all of us. I think it's just probably more. It probably is more. Is maybe stronger in people that that live very kind of insulated
Mm-hmm.
lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's almost also that thing that you want what you can't have,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you feel locked in, you feel like you can't get out, so that makes you want to get out all the more.
Right. And it's also interesting that that Turgon is so protective of her, because I feel like with kids and everything, we often are protective, like overly protective of them,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't keep them kind of completely imprisoned, and not that we imprison our kids, but the idea that like you can't keep them from going out and starting to face the world and deal with the world and all of the good things, but also the dangers associated with the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to kind of slowly let them, give them more and more,
Mm-hmm.
room to go out there, and it's probably got to make you a little uncomfortable every time you do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I kind of wonder if maybe the problem here isn't that Turgon, instead of like telling her to go ride, sometimes maybe it's not just her, but maybe it's the overprotectiveness he had for the realm itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he was so careful about anyone going out and coming in that it became stifling eventually for the people who lived there.
Yeah, it could be. That could very well be.
Aredhel might just be representative of, the general feeling among the Gondolindrim, I think is what they call them, Gondolindrim, the people of Gondolin.
Yeah.
All right. So she eventually arrives in Non-Elmoth.
Right.
And it says of those woods, in that wood in ages past, Melion walked in the twilight of Middle-earth, when the trees were young and enchantment lay upon it still. But now the trees of Non-Elmoth were the tallest and darkest in all Beleriand, and there the sun never came. And there Eöl dwelt, who was named the Dark Elf. So he lives in the darkest forest in all Beleriand. The sun doesn't even can't even reach the ground there.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically in this, night forest. What do you think of Eöl?
Well, to be honest, I first thought of him as almost like I know he's an elf and everything, but he reminded me a little bit of Gollum. The way he, shuns the sunlight, and it even says something about him being stooped. Even though he was an elf, he was kind of stooped.
Yeah.
And he was, the dark hair, the dark eyes, and he lived alone. And he struck me as a very, what's the right word? well, dark
Mm-hmm.
character. Obviously, he's a dark elf, but very mysterious
Mm-hmm.
too. And I was instantly suspicious of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he does. He certainly doesn't give any reason to trust them. He's also he also feels maybe a stronger kinship with the dwarves than any of his own people, which is an interesting note and maybe somewhat also relatable to Gollum, even though Gollum didn't really like anybody.
That's true.
He's Gollum was at least like the dwarves in that he liked to live in and dig in dark places.
Yep.
He was a miner, or a digger, and the dwarves are miners. And and he didn't like the Noldor. He really despised the Noldor.
Yeah, he did.
He felt like they brought. He even says he felt like they brought Morgoth. They were responsible for his return, which isn't really fair to the Noldor. You can't blame it. You can't blame it on them really at all. Morgoth did what he did, except to say that maybe they fell for it. They fell for Morgoth's shenanigans back in Valinor, and that allowed him to escape. But he blames them and hates them for it, and really hates them without reserve. It speaks of him and says that he devised a metal as hard as the steel of the dwarves, but so malleable that he could make it thin and supple, and yet it remained resistant to all blades and darts. He named it Galvorn, for it was black and shining like jet, and he was clad in it whenever he went abroad. And he said, so he says he stooped by his smith work, but he was a tall elf of a high kin of the Teleri, noble though grim of face, and his eyes could see deep into shadows and dark places. So he is outwardly he is a dark figure. Inwardly, he's got some. He would seem to have some darkness in there as well.
Yes.
And he is a smith. He is a maker. So, Aredhel comes along, and it says, weary of wandering, came at last to his. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me back up just a bit. He saw Aredhel as she strayed among the tall trees near the borders of Non-Elmoth, a gleam of white in the dim land. Very fair she seemed to him, and he desired her. And he set his enchantments about her so that she could not find the ways out, but drew ever nearer to his dwelling in the depths of the wood. Creepy.
Totally creepy.
Man.
Yes.
I mean, not just creepy, like, it's messed up.
That's like a spider, like luring somebody to its lair.
It is,
it's really creepy.
Yeah.
Here's
this, and it would have been interesting to hear how he would have maybe possibly defended this, maybe his thought was like, well, she was in a dangerous area, so and I didn't think she would trust me outright, so I, lured her into this place where she would be safe, and sure enough, she was safe. And, well, to be fair to him, even though he did lure her in, it says right after that Aredhel, it is not said that Aredhel was wholly unwilling, nor that her life in Non-Elmoth was hateful to her for many years. So, apparently, it's not like he just puts a spell on her and she, decides to become his wife. Apparently, she thinks he's okay for a while,
Yeah.
Okay enough to marry him and have a child with him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
she doesn't really have any other options, though. Let's be honest. I mean, she's in kind of deep doo-doo, I mean, she's lost, right? She's completely turned around. She has no idea where she is. She's has no kin. There's no Noldor nearby, and it's not like she can escape. And even if she did escape, she'd probably die of starvation or get killed by Ungoliant or something, right? So I don't, she's probably, it was wise of her to just kind of put up with it and be like, well, I can't do any better right now, right?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I hear you. I mean, she's come this far. She's. I'm not saying that that she maybe didn't need to stop, but maybe she could have left a lot sooner, especially if she was that creeped out by Eöl. But it seems like there was. I mean, it sounds to me like for a little while at least there was a genuine affection, between
I don't
them.
think it was affection. I think it was tolerance.
Maybe it was tolerance.
It doesn't say that she was willing. It says she was not unwilling, which is two different things.
Well, it says that she was not. It is not said that Aredhel was wholly unwilling, nor that her life in non-Elmoth was hateful to her for many years.
So she was not wholly unwilling. So she could have been partly unwilling.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's read a little bit more of this.
Anyway, let me just say, I did not get the feeling from reading this that she cared anything for him. That's just my personal opinion. I think she tolerated him. And I think she used him to, basically survive.
Maybe.
A desperate situation.
Perhaps. It says, for though at Eöl's command she must shun the sunlight, they wandered far together under the stars or by the light of the sickle moon. Or she might fare alone as she would, save that Eöl forbade her to seek the sons of Fëanor or any others of the Noldor. And Aredhel bore to Eöl. So we have a little bit there. It does speak of him being, pretty willing to let her wander about in this land. But it is interesting that she's basically gone from one prison to another.
Yes.
Yes,
that's true.
So
that's very true.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a toss up between our, maybe our two perspectives there on how willing she was, because, it's hard to judge. We're not really told all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can lean a little bit more towards you because we know that she did eventually just completely flee and try to get away from him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But not just yet, because Maeglin comes along.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Maeglin comes along. It's interesting that it speaks of her giving him the name Lomion, the child of the twilight, in Noldorin, but obviously Eöl never knows that name for him because the Noldorin tongue is forbidden, and he doesn't like the Noldor anyway.
Right.
But to most others, he's known as Maeglin, which is sharp glance, for he perceived that the eyes of his son were more piercing than his own, and his thought could read the secrets of hearts beyond the mist of words. I like that little line right there. The secrets of hearts beyond the mist of words. What do you think that means?
His thought could read the secrets of hearts beyond the mist. Well, I think it means that he can perceive what people really mean.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He can go deeper. He can see deeper
mm-hmm.
to what's really...
Yeah.
Because you can make words say whatever you want them to say, but that's not always what is true.
It's interesting to think of words as mist.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we think of taking someone at their word, but so often we use words to make things a little cloudier.
Mm-hmm.
Our true intentions a little cloudier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Maeglin resembled in face and form the Noldor, but in mood and mind he was like the son. He was the son of his father. So he was tall and black-haired. His eyes were dark yet bright and keen as the eyes of the Noldor, and his skin was white. And he learned mining by following Eöl into the mountains and studying with the dwarves, learning mining from them. So he grows, and all the while he's learning the stories from his mother of Gondolin and of his Noldorin relatives.
Yes.
He did love his mother better, it says.
Mm-hmm.
But the curious thing that stands out to me is where it talks about hearing the stories of Turgon. All these things he laid to heart, but most of all that which he heard of Turgon, and that he had no heir. For Elenwë, his wife, perished in the crossing of the Helcaraxe, and his daughter Idril Celebrindal was his only child. So it doesn't come right out and say it, but I'm hearing a little bit of Maeglin thinking to himself, the Lord of Gondolin hath no heir. Sounds like he needs an heir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I could be his heir,
Mm-hmm. Maybe some plotting.
We don't get a lot. it's interesting with both Eöl and Maeglin. I feel like with both of those characters, even though Eöl it's at different points says it quite a bit, I really feel like their inner beings remain very obscured and hard to read. You know, especially Maeglin, but also Eöl. I mean, he basically just lets his hatred and disdain for other things speak in this chapter, and you know, we don't see very deeply into their characters. You know.
True.
It's very interesting that, you know,
they seem very one-dimensional.
Yeah, and maybe not. I don't know if I'd say one-dimensional, because I think that means something different, but just hard to get. I know there's something there. It's not that they're shallow. I know there's something there. It's just like there's kind of a blackness over it, which is a darkness over what's behind. You know, there's a curtain over it that never gets pulled back.
Yes.
And I think that's a masterful job of creating these characters by Tolkien, because that's exactly what he wanted them to be. You know,
okay.
You know, outwardly and inwardly they are dark elves. You know.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's a good point.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, let's pause there and do a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back and finish off the chapter.
Sounds good.
All right. Don't go away.
Stay tuned. Hey, Tolkien Roadsters. What's shaking? Greta Carswell here, just getting my groove on to the Tolkien Haiku theme music. Man, that's an awesome song. You know what else is awesome? Feedback on the Tolkien Road on iTunes. Oh yeah, you heard me right. iTunes feedback is one of the best ways you can tell the world about your undying love for this podcast. Because it lets those knuckleheads at Apple know that the Tolkien Road is where it's at. I mean, come on. Why didn't they know that already? Am I right? So next time you're waiting in line to pick up some delicious tacos, surfing the World Wide Web, brushing up on a Tom Bombadil factoid, or keeping it real in whatever way you keep it real, pop on over to iTunes and let the human race know what you think about the Tolkien Road. We're all dying to know, for reals. Party on, y'all.
All right. We is back.
Yes, we is.
Yes. All right. So Maeglin is now more or less full grown, and one day Eöl is away. And what happens?
Say again.
Maeglin.
Maeglin. I think it's funny that he calls his mom Lady. He's like, Lady, let's get out of here. He suggests that they leave, and they go to Gondolin. And he says, you shall be my guide, and I will be your guard.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that a lot. And that made Aredhel happy. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And so they left.
Yeah.
They flew.
And there had been a growing, rift between Eöl and Maeglin, because he had started to bring up the idea of, hey, what if I went and took a little vacation to see my relatives in Gondolin?
Right.
And Eöl says, you are a Teleri and not one of those Noldor scumbags, right? Not one of those invaders and usurpers of our homes and slayers of our kin. In this you shall obey me, or I will set you in bonds.
Right.
So Eöl is a pretty oppressive father.
He is. Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not about to let Maeglin go and see his relatives,
right.
do all these things.
Right.
It's insulting to Aredhel, if you think about it, because here he is. He's obviously married Aredhel.
Right. I mean, he's half Noldor.
Right.
Right. So he's just as much Noldor as he is Teleri.
Right. Maeglin is, and so for Eöl, to have married Aredhel who is a Noldor, and then to say you're not one of them is insulting to her.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's refusing to let your kids, see their other grandparents, right? Or their other side of the family. I mean, it is. It's insulting.
So you can see how that would have been maybe a final wedge between not only Maeglin and Eöl, but also between Aredhel and Eöl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
She might have just been like, "What am I just still doing with this clown?"
Super long.
Well,
personally,
hey, you know what? She was shut up in Gondolin for 200 years, so she was probably just looking for any kind of change of scenery she could find.
That's probably true. Couldn't have gotten much worse for her.
Yeah. So they escape and they think they're going to get far away, but Eöl returns sooner than they expected and finds out that they've left. They tell the servants of Eöl that they are going to seek the sons of Fëanor, so they're trying to throw them off. They're trying to say we're going the other way, when in all reality they're going back. They're going back to Gondolin. And so great was his anger that of Eöl's anger that he followed them even by the light of day. So here the dark elf who doesn't like venturing out under the sun, who lives in the darkest forest in all Beleriand, goes following them even during the light of the day to catch up with them.
Yeah.
Now he comes across the son Curufin, who is one of the sons of Fëanor, and I thought maybe we could go read through this section a little bit together. There's it's an interesting little section. So, how about you play Curufin and I'll play Eöl.
Okay.
And I'll do the narration too.
Okay.
Unless you want to do the narration.
No, I'm good.
All right. So you're Curufin.
Okay.
Got it.
Where are we starting?
Now Eöl returned.
Okay.
Now Eöl returned out of the east sooner than Maeglin had foreseen, and found his wife and his son but 2 days gone. And so great was his anger that he followed after them even by the light of day. As he entered the Hemlod, he mastered his wrath and went warily, remembering his danger. For Celegorm and Curufin were mighty lords who loved Eöl not at all, and Curufin moreover was of perilous mood. But the scouts of Aglon had marked the riding of Maeglin and Aredhel to the fords of Aros, and Curufin perceived that strange deeds were afoot. Curufin, perceiving that strange deeds were afoot, came south from the pass and camped near the fords. And before Eöl had ridden far across the Hemlod, he was waylaid by the riders of Curufin and taken to their lord. Then Curufin said to Eöl,
"What errand have you, dark elf, in my lands? An urgent matter, perhaps, that keeps one so sun-shy abroad by day."
And Eöl, knowing his peril, restrained the bitter words that arose in his mind. "I have learned, Lord Curufin," he said, "that my son and my wife, the White Lady of Gondolin, have ridden to visit you while I was from home, and it seemed to me fitting that I should join them on this errand." Then Curufin laughed at Eöl, and he said,
"They might have found their welcome here less warm than they hoped, had you accompanied them. But it is no matter, for that was not their errand. It is not 2 days since they passed over the Erosiach, and thence rode swiftly westward. It seems that you would deceive me, unless indeed you yourself have been deceived."
And Eöl answered, "Then, Lord, perhaps you will give me leave to go and discover the truth of this matter."
"You have my leave, but not my love,"
said Curufin.
"The sooner you depart from my land, the better will it please me."
Then Eöl mounted his horse, saying, "It is good, Lord Curufin, to find a kinsman thus kindly at need. I will remember it when I return." Then Curufin looked darkly upon Eöl.
"Do not flaunt the title of your wife before me,"
he said.
"For those who steal the daughters of the Noldor and wed them without gift or leave do not gain kinship with their kin. I have given you leave to go. Take it and be gone. By the laws of the Eldar, I may not slay you at this time. And this counsel I add, return now to your dwelling in the darkness of Nan-Amoth. For my heart warns me that if you now pursue those who love you no more, never will you return thither."
Then Eöl rode off in haste, and he was filled with hatred of all the Noldor, for he perceived now that Maeglin and Aredhel were fleeing to Gondolin. And driven by anger and the shame of his humiliation, he crossed the fords of Aros and rode hard upon the way that they had gone before. But though they knew not that he followed them, and he had the swiftest steed, he came never in sight of them until they reached the Brithiach and abandoned their horses. Then by ill fate they were betrayed, for the horses neighed loudly, and Eöl's steed heard them, and sped towards them. And Eöl saw from afar the white raiment of Aredhel, and marked which way she went, seeking the secret path into the mountains. And so he's able to follow them into the mountains. But we see in that passage with Curufin and Eöl just how little love lost there is between him and the Noldorin, especially the sons of Fëanor. He does repress his anger because he knows he'll probably get killed there. But it's not just, it goes both ways, right? This hatred goes both ways.
Yes.
Because now he's stolen one of their women, and not only one of their women, but one of their, maybe even like the most magnificent or beautiful or wonderful of their women, right? The White Lady of the Noldor. So, they all very much look down upon Eöl as well. So now he has followed them to Gondolin.
Yes.
And he manages to sneak in behind Aredhel and Maeglin.
Yes.
And is caught. The guard catches him and brings him before Turgon. And Turgon is actually willing to bring him in and let him dwell there.
Let him stay there.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
Were you?
Somewhat, but it makes sense. Turgon's glad to have Aredhel back, and Turgon's not a son of Fëanor. He's not a total hothead.
Yeah.
So, he looks at this and he's like, okay, I could either make a big deal about this and, I could, imprison or slay this guy who has married my sister, or I could try to, treat him like family,
right,
and bring him into the fold, and hopefully, we can all live happily ever after.
Right.
But Eöl is not willing to have it. To him, a Noldor is a Noldor, and he hates them all.
Yep.
And so he says, I acknowledge not your law. No right have you or any of your kin in this land to seize realms or to set bounds either here or there. He views the Noldor very much as usurpers.
Yes.
That they have, they're invaders. They came in and broke this peacefulness in the land of Beleriand, and he has just nothing but hatred for them for that. And all he wants is for Maeglin to come with him, to leave and to come with him.
He's willing to let Aredhel stay. He's
willing to let Aredhel stay. And he, basically because he probably looks at her and he's like, maybe he's just because they've been growing apart or whatever over the years or whatever it is, but he's like, you may have, and he also says to Turgon, you may have some claim with her, because she is your sister, but you have no claim over my son. And so he says, your father commands you, leave the house of his enemies and the slayer of his kin, or be accursed. But Maeglin answered nothing. Maeglin was very quiet.
He said nothing before either. Remember when they had that discussion about how he was not discussion, but when his dad told him he was forbidden to go see his relatives. Right? Remember it says he said nothing.
Right.
And as a result, Eöl mistrusted him.
Right.
So yes, he is very quiet.
Turgon steps in again and says, I will not debate with you. Your freedom to wander there wild you owe to my kin, and but for them long since you would have labored in thraldom in the pits of Angband. And here I am king, and whether you will it or not, my doom is law. The only choice is given to you, to abide here or to die here, and so also for your son. And then Eöl looks into the eyes of King Turgon, and he seizes a javelin, and cast it at Maeglin in order to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
The second choice I take, and for my son also, you shall not hold what is mine. So we have this fierceness of possession, right?
Mm-hmm.
That Maeglin is his son,
Yep.
and if Eöl can't have his son, then no one will have his son, right? And he doesn't care if that means his own death too. And the tragedy, he gets Aredhel. Aredhel is hit by the spear.
She jumps in front of it.
Right.
He wasn't aiming for her.
Right. You're right.
It was a very mother hen
Yeah.
protective instinct.
Kind of reaction.
Yes.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it says again, but Maeglin, looking upon his father, was silent, even after this happens. And so Eöl is brought before the king's judgment, and Aredhel appears to be okay at first, but it turns out that the spear was poisoned,
Right.
and she dies. It
Yes.
says, she fell into the darkness, and in the night she died. For the point of the javelin was poisoned, though none knew it until too late. And Turgon finds no mercy for this. So he is cast off the walls of the city. And Maeglin still says nothing, but as Eöl is being plunged down, he says, "So you forsake your father and his kin, ill-gotten son. Here shall you fail of all your hopes, and here may you yet die the same death as I."
Eöl said that.
Eöl said that to Maeglin, who just remains there in silence.
Yep.
And so the end comes to Eöl. So Aredhel and Eöl both die. And then we have kind of a little postscript about what happened with Maeglin. So the big thing is Maeglin had a love for Turgon's daughter Idril.
Yes.
What do you think of Idril?
I don't know anything about her. Except that she's Turgon's daughter,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, the other thing we know, I guess, is that she did not care an ounce for him.
Yeah.
In fact, it said that she loved him not at all.
Yeah.
And knowing his thought of her, she loved him the less.
Mm-hmm.
Because she said that seemed to her a thing strange and crooked. Because they're basically cousins, right? I mean, they're cousins, right?
Yes.
So she's like, that's weird, And so, but he continued to watch her, right? And I'm hoping.
Well,
I don't think, it doesn't seem to me that Idril did anything to lead him on.
No. Other than maybe being the daughter of Turgon, right?
Well, I'm saying she didn't do anything to lead him on.
I know. I'm just saying, other than being the daughter of Turgon.
Well, because she lives there. Is that what you mean?
No. I'm not saying. You misunderstand me. I'm not saying that
Okay.
that's leading her on. I'm just saying that she is the daughter of Turgon, and apparently very beautiful.
Yes.
But it would seem to me, and going back to what it said earlier in the chapter about Turgon not having an heir, and that kind of piquing Maeglin's curiosity and his desire to go back to Gondolin. It says, very close to the end here, it says, as the years passed, still Maeglin watched Idril and waited, and his love turned to darkness in his heart, and he sought the more to have his will in other matters, shirking no toil or burden, if he might thereby have power. So he's trying to gain power. He's trying to gain power in Gondolin to himself. And maybe this Idril as a personal love and power in Gondolin are kind of intertwined for him, right? It would seem that maybe he wants to, make a name for himself by kind of quietly toiling away, over the years until his opportunity comes. It's just interesting to me that he's so quiet along the way. It just seems like he's plotting something.
Yeah. And it does talk about him. It sounds like he was a great asset for them in Gondolin. I mean, he worked hard, and he was also a maker, like his dad. It said he was wise in counsel, and but he was still hardy and valiant, and he went to war even when he didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I mean, it sounds like he's really, he's really trying to put his best foot forward here. Like, he's trying to kind of gain some respect
Mm-hmm.
In the kingdom.
And also to be fair to him, he in later years when war breaks out again with Angband, he goes and he's a fierce warrior apparently,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Says that the second to last paragraph, big paragraph, Maeglin would not remain in Gondolin as a regent of the king, but
Mm-hmm.
went to the war and fought beside Turgon and proved fell and fearless in battle.
Right, that's what I just said. Even though he didn't have to go to war, he went anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then we're on the same page. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Sometimes I get lost in my own thought, and
Mm-hmm. I understand.
Sorry.
That's okay. Great minds. Great
Yeah.
minds. Yeah. So I mean, I think he is. I mean, I agree with you. I think he is trying to plot something, but I feel like he's at least trying to. He's trying to do it honestly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's trying to be sneaky and underhanded like his dad might have been.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't help who you fall in love with. It just stinks that he's related to the girl that he's in love with, and they don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? It says that they don't. What it says? It says that they. Yeah, the elder. It just says they don't do it. Right.
Right.
They were too closely related.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it kind of stinks. It's. I don't know.
Yeah.
It sounds like he just can't get over it.
Right. Yeah. But all the while, he does not reveal his heart. It's just that Idril seems to be able to see into his heart. She may be the one, and that maybe that's
It's
part of.
interesting because I thought Maeglin could do that too, or Maeglin, that he could do that too, right? Didn't it say that he could see through the mist of words?
He can, yeah, but
So he knows. He knows that.
But it says here that he does not reveal his heart, right? And though not all things went as he would, he endured it in silence, hiding his mind so that few could read it, unless it were Idril Celebrindal, right? So he is just he's a tough book to read. He does not show forth a lot of what he truly is thinking and feeling. But apparently Idril has a way of saying into him, and maybe that's part of the reason he has, he develops that love for her, right?
Yeah.
And that desire for her, because there's he senses that there's somebody who can really understand me, even though she maybe doesn't completely understand him.
Yeah.
But thus it was in Gondolin, and amid all the bliss of that realm, while its glory lasted, a dark seed of evil was sown. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I was going to say, it ends on a rather dark note.
Yes. So,
And I'm guessing that the next chapter probably has nothing to do with that.
well, not really.
Yeah.
The coming of men into the West.
But we all obviously know we're going to revisit
Mm-hmm.
this. The stage has been set for something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So things are going to start. Pace is going to start picking up over the next couple of chapters. The next one does deal a bit with just the coming in of men,
Right.
and is a little bit on the slow side. But then chapter 18 just right. That's when the dam breaks and the siege of Angband is broken after all these years, and it's also setting the stage for chapter 19, which is of Baron and Luthien, which is
we're getting close.
We're getting close to that one, which is kind of I think the best chapter in the whole book.
Yes.
So we are done with chapter 16 of Maeglin.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas is in 4 days as we record this.
Craziness.
So
my goodness.
we're going to take the next couple of weeks off from recording, and we're planning to come back on January 12th.
All right.
Yeah. So have a new episode posted on January 12th. So, yeah, we're making good progress. We're it's not going to be too long before we're done with the Silmarillion, and you will be one of those people, one of the few, the proud, that can say, I have read the whole Silmarillion, and not just read
Am I
it.
going to get a t-shirt?
Not just, maybe we'll make t-shirts
Maybe we should
that
make
say, I've read the
t-shirts.
Silmarillion.
I think we should.
That's not a bad idea. I don't know if we could actually put the Silmarillion on a t-shirt. I think that might be copyrighted, but I don't know. We can look into it.
Yeah, we could like make a t-shirt of like climbed Mount Everest,
Mm-hmm.
right? Swam the English Channel, read the Silmarillion.
That's right.
I might not have done the first two, but I did the last one, and as far as I'm concerned, they're all pretty much the same difficulty, so.
There you go. All
Maybe
right.
ran a marathon, something like that.
Did you have
anyway.
Did you have a favorite passage or anything like that you want to mention?
No, I really liked the whole chapter.
Yeah,
I didn't
good.
have
It's
a
a good
particular
chapter.
passage. How about you?
I just like that whole like the mist of words little passage right there. That was nifty.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right.
All right.
Thank you guys for listening.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank
yes,
you for
Merry
listening,
Christmas.
and Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year.
We shall talk to you again in 2016.
Yeah, we'll talk at you next year.
All right.
All right.
Take
Have
care.
a good one.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Please remember to check out truemyths.org for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes? It's a great way to support the show and takes less than a minute. Christmas is coming soon, so we're going to be taking a break from recording new episodes for the next few weeks. We expect to be back on January 12th, when we'll continue our discussion of the Silmarillion with Chapter 17, of the coming of men into the West. We hope you'll tune in, and until next time, the road goes ever on.